What's going on, guys? It is Carly here, bringing you your weekly dose of horror, and today I'm here to talk about a psychological horror film from the year 2007, and that is 1408, of course, starring John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson. 1408, this is based off a Stephen King story. I believe it's just a short story, not like an actual novel or anything, but and the movie follows this character who is a successful writer, and he goes to different haunted houses or hotels or just different haunted areas and kind of walks around and sort of, I guess, debunks what's going on. He's not really actually into the whole paranormal and believing in heaven or God or anything like that. He's just not really a big believer, and he goes to these places and makes stories out of his experiences. So one day he comes across this Dolphin Hotel, and they have this room known as 1408 where pretty much everyone who has stayed in this room has not made it through the whole night, and they end up dying in one way or another, and it's very mysterious. The hotel runner, who is Samuel L. Jackson's character, kind of warns this guy over and over again and is basically begging him not to actually stay in the room because he will regret it, and of course he doesn't believe that, and he stays in the room, and then of course he learns why everyone stays away from this room. So that is 1408. This is a movie I remember seeing on TV when I was younger, and I remember when this movie came out as well. 2007, I was probably 10 years old at that time. Well, I was 10 years old at that time, and I remember not being too interested just based on the previews back then, and never really seeing it. But then I saw it on TV years later, and I was really surprised by how much it actually captured my attention, and I really enjoyed it. I watched it a few years ago, and I forget, this is another one where I don't remember if I bought this for myself. I want to say JP probably got me this one as well, because I can't really see myself picking this up. It's weird how I kind of forget that over time, but watched it again a few years ago, and liked it once again. Thought it was a really solid film. Upon this rewatch, nothing much has changed. I think it's a fantastic psychological horror movie. It does kind of feel a little more like a thriller in some aspects, but there are a lot of honestly pretty creepy moments going on in this film, and I just love the setup as well. I love what this character is doing, going to different haunted places, and especially hotels in particular. I love movies that take place in a hotel. I've said it many times before. I worked in a hotel, and I just think it would be a cool setting for any type of horror movie, and I love when it's utilized. Of course, The Shining is one of my favorite horror movies, and that kind of plays into why. I just think it's a pretty cool setting, and I think hotels are honestly pretty creepy as well, just based on the certain types of people you have staying in them and coming in and out, and just thinking of all the dark stuff that you hear that does kind of go on in hotels, whether it be suicide and things like that. So I really like that, and just the concept of what he's doing, that's something I've always wanted to do, is just kind of go to haunted locations and see if anything actually occurs, and I just think it would be a pretty cool idea. So that in itself is awesome. I think that John Cusack's character does a good job. You're pretty much following him the whole movie. Of course, Samuel Jackson's on the cover here because he's in pretty much every movie, and when you have him in your movie, you want to make him a big deal, but he's not really in the movie too much. He's pretty much just the hotel runner and the warner that he's warning John Cusack not to stay in this room, and that's kind of his big role in the movie, and the movie is pretty much just following John here. So I think he does a really good job of just sort of losing his mind while all this crazy stuff is happening in this hotel room. It's very believable and very frustrating just what he's going through. I mean, it would be horrible just to think about. I think it's a very scary concept that you're just kind of stuck in this room no matter what you do, and just all this weird, bizarre stuff is happening, and it's kind of trying to convince you to go crazy and kill yourself or something like that. So I think the concept is pretty creepy just in general. You also learn in this movie that he kind of had some traumatic thing happen to him in his life, him and his wife, and he definitely does a good job of portraying that type of character as well. You just get the vibe that he's very cynical, I guess, and kind of a miserable guy who just writes these books to make money, and he doesn't really believe in anything, and he's not very passionate about anything, and you definitely get that vibe from him in the film. So overall, I think it's a great movie. The ending gives me chills every time as well. That never has worn off, and it's one that I can definitely rewatch and I still feel the same way about it. You know, sometimes you rewatch a movie and it either goes up or down. This one I've always kind of just felt the same way with each viewing. Like I said, this is probably only the third or fourth time that I've watched it, but I really enjoy it. I think it's solid, and I really don't have any complaints with this one, honestly, at all. And last time I gave it a 10 out of 10, and I think this time I'm still going to give it a 10 out of 10 because it's just one of those rare movies where I really have no problems. It's kind of a longer movie. I believe it runs 104 minutes, but it doesn't feel like that. It kind of just moves along, and you really get into the haunting type stuff right away. So I really like that about it. Of course, I'm not huge on movies that are too long, but if they are able to kind of captivate you and keep you intrigued through the whole thing, I don't mind it, and this movie does that. So 10 out of 10 to 1408. I know people probably might not agree with that type of high rating for a simple movie as this, but I think it's solid. I think the acting's good, and I love the setting. So, like I said, 10 out of 10. Thank you guys once again for joining me on this Friday here for your weekly dose of horror, and as always, I will see you next week.